Korean media claiming that there is a political intention on disassembling of KF-21. Kai claims that it is a common procedure. What's really behind this? On June 2nd of 2021, a Korean daily newspaper has posted an article, Mystery of a Korean jet fighter, disassembling right after President Moon has taken a look at it. As you may be aware, I was unable to let this one slide after reading it. As I have emphasized many times in the past, KF-21 is still in its development stage, and it is the first jet fighter that Korea is manufacturing solely with its own resources. I also have mentioned that we should be alert on many potential unknown variables. No other countries in this world has successfully developed a new jet fighter without such process. And this must be in the back of our minds when we root for the development of KF-21 Borame in order to achieve good results. On engineers' point of view, it would be like walking on thin ice, more so than the development of F-850. So those that are participating in the KF-21 project are currently being very cautious, even if it is like walking on a bridge made of rocks. This Korean article has stated various inspections and evaluation virtually impossible since the twin engine has been removed from the prototype only months after the release ceremony. The article continues by saying Fighter 1, which had its camouflage paintings at the ceremony, has been disassembled to a point where inner frame are visible. And core parts such as the airborne refuel system also have been removed. Cover for the cockpit called canopy was removed completely for the purpose of internal inspection. Landing gear were also taken out. Now the jet fighter cannot stand on its own. Not only that, the article suggests its conclusion that the total disassembling was because it is possible that the KF-21's overall center of gravity may not be properly set, which deviates from the blueprint planning, which means that the assembly may have rushed to make it for the release ceremony, which the president was present. If the praise over a center of gravity may not be properly set for KF-21 ends up being true, then it will accompany many major issues. This is something that should be published after very careful due diligence, while if it was, "oh, we were wrong" type of article, there can be consequences. Defense Acquisition Program Administration has also immediately refuted such claim regarding the center of gravity issue. It was an unusually fast response, which shows their displeasure of the article. As I was reading this article, I started having a logical question. If KF-21 development is in a bad state, in the point of view of the three journalists, why would the DAPA dare to provide access to the press and have them cover and report about this in the first place? So, if KF-21 being disassembled would have led to problems, it is logical and more efficient to simply block the access completely. Not only that, KF-21 is a classified government project to be covered, which requires a high level of security. DAPA has all the power and justification to limit the access if they wish to. So I thought it would be reasonable to get a point of view from a different party. First, I look at DAPA's statement after the article has been published on the journal. DAPA stated that KF-21 Prototype 1 is in its development phase. They also mentioned that a jet fighter being disassembled to the point of totality and core gravity not being properly set, as said in the article, are simply not true. It is true that engines have been removed and inspections were ongoing with inspection windows open for testing when the media requested access to the coverage. But the prototype being totally disassembled is far from the truth. Removing or disassembling a part or two is simply a process of inspection, which is the same in other countries as well. I was able to get more detailed explanation from a member of Korea Aerospace Industries. In case of developing a new jet fighter and preparing for ground performance and flying, the first process is the fuel system inspection. The space is limited due to the structure of a jet fighter, so the fuel tanks are placed separately in many different places. KF-21 contains 6 internal fuel tanks, while the biggest one is under the canopy of the cockpit. In order to see if the fuel transmitter, which is spread like a blood vessel, has no blockage or whether fuel leakage is not occurring, can only be determined after removing the engine at pressure with a pressure device and circulate the fuel to the whole jet fighter. For more detailed results, certain parts need to be separated. As I have mentioned, I heard that the biggest fuel tank is in the cockpit, which is why canopy and some avionic equipment also have to be taken out. Of course, if certain part contains one of 6 fuel tanks, it would have been removed. If the safety of the jet fighter has been confirmed, an eye check would have been enough. But because it is in its development phase only, disassembly was executed as a cautionary measure. KAI personnel also added that if you are an expert in aerodynamics or relevant fields, it is a simple process which is common in all other countries as well. I asked why they didn't mention this to the press covering this, and he actually said that they did. KAI also didn't understand why such article was published. He did tell me that he has an idea why, but I will keep this to myself since it may not be appropriate. KAI also said they are always ready for any questions from the press. After listening to both sides of the story, it reminded me of an idiom which says that a person sees what they want to see first. Air Force Reserve generals and daily newspaper reporters comment usually the introduction event of the prototype take place before the final ground and flight test. It is the view that such introduction should take place after it is ready to perform final ground and flight tests. Their view is that disassembling after the ceremony is simply cheating with a transparent lie. On the other hand, KAI and DAPA's view is that they have already announced that the final ground and flight test will take place next May. After the prototype release on April of 2020 and a year-long various tests have been completed. If the prototype was finished this April and flight test would have taken place right after, this would have been a problem. But DAPA or KAI has executed exactly as the schedule they announced, which is why they are having a hard time understanding why the disassembly is becoming an issue as big as it is. The most important thing is the success of the scheduled flight test next May. Not whether KF-21 was disassembled or not after the ceremony. I personally believe that KF-21 Borame is a very important project that should result in success, regardless of whether you are conservative or liberal. For independent national defense capability in the middle of Northeast Asia's geographical storm and to form a reliable military alliance with the US, success of KF-21 is absolutely necessary. The history proves time and time again on what alliance without power has brought to the nation's future. There was a comment that really struck me, which was left by one of KKMD viewers overseas, saying that he had the tears in his eyes after singing KF-21 on the ceremony. We take Republic of Korea for granted, but it hits you even harder on how precious it is once you settle down in a foreign soil. Even arguments between conservative and liberal can only be possible if your homeland nation exists. I believe there will be more articles like this to come. I will use my resources as much as possible, and I try to give you the information on the other side of coin as well. Kevin's Korean Military Dictionary, KKMD, is devoted to introduce South Korean military power and translate foreign military news into Korean. This is my first time when I try to make a video with English narration and subtitles. So I think there may be some mistakes in the sentences. If it is, I humbly seek your generosity. Thank you for watching this video. Kevin's military channel, KKMD.